At Your Instep is brought to you by Comic Town and BCW Supplies. Hello, and welcome to Now Your Instep. My name is Morgan. I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks today. Before we get started, definitely want to let everyone know that Mike and I are going to be attending GenCon this week. So we're recording this on the Monday before GenCon. I'm going to be there starting Friday, and Mike's going to be there on Thursday, right when the con starts. I know your big goal is to qualify for that beta qualifier.
Yeah, that's why I'm going.
So just wanted to give a shout out. So if you do see us around the con, feel free to say hi and maybe stop and chat a little bit and let you know what's going on. Take a picture if you want a picture of us. You don't, I'll give you that from
I'll try to keep some stickers on me too if you want.
Yeah. I have some too. So you can grab some sweet stickers from us, put them in your deck box.
I will be working also for Brotherwise Games a little bit on Thursday and Saturday, only a couple hours, but they are the makers of Boss Monster and also Unearth, and they're kickstarting Call to Adventure.
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit of the Let's Play for that, and it looked really interesting.
The updates are a little bit more helpful because the rule set was a little esoteric, but they've been working on it, and it hit. I got an email from them because I backed a lot of their other games, and they hit their like 4 or 5 or even 6 tiers of like backing already. Like they've exceeded. So good guys though. Like I literally have like worked with the one brother Chris every time, and makes me keep coming back. So if you want to know where you can find me on Thursday and Saturday in the morning, you can come and literally find me there and say hi.
I think on Saturday Friday or Saturday I'm gonna go through and do a demo of the new game.
Yeah, you definitely should. I know that a friend of ours did it at Origins and really liked it. So
sweet.
But otherwise, you'll find me playing Magic.
Yeah, I'll be walking around the vendor hall. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my Gen Con. I'll play a little bit of Magic, but I want to do some other gaming and stuff like that. So probably play some like secret rule games and stuff like that, you know, because I really enjoy those. So let's go ahead and actually jump into our community segment. So we actually got the whole Commander 2019 spoiler. And the only 2 decks are missing were the Esper deck and the Band deck that we didn't have full official spoilers for. So definitely want to talk about them. Now, I did allude that there was a card that I think from the Esper deck that might be kind of interesting, potentially for Legacy, maybe as something that is like fringe, not necessarily a like 4 of an anything or anything like that, but it's Aminato, the Fate Shifter, the Esper Planeswalker that headlines the Esper sort of top of your deck manipulation theme with that deck, but it's Esper so it's a 3-mana Planeswalker for 3 loyalty. It's +1 is draw a card, then put a card from your hand on top of your library, and then exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. And then -6, choose left or right. Each player gains control of a non-land of all non-land permanents other than Aminato, the Fate Shifter, controlled by the next player in the chosen direction. So you swap permanents.
Everything moves to the left.
Yeah. If you're in your a 1v1, everything just swaps. But I think like the +1 on this card is kind of can be a useful effect in something like a Miracles type build. Definitely manipulating the top card of your library for.
And that deck does have a lot of Miracles in it, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So. That's kind of what piques my interest, as well as it being 3 mana, which is important for Legacy, and it's +1 getting it out of bolt range.
I think that this is the card I referred to last week. I mentioned we saw the full art for this card even before we saw it spoiled. It's real creepy. Like this is it is very, very good. And
yeah, it's a creepy 8-year-old child.
Yeah, like oh man, it's pretty great. I will say that this also definitely infinitely combos a lot of things, including Felidar Guardian.
It's true.
Just so you know. So if you want to do those kind of things,
yeah,
you can.
It's just like 3 mana is like that sweet spot for things like Legacy, unless you're Jason the Mind Sculptor. So that's just why it could be something, could be absolutely nothing. I wouldn't hold my breath about it. But out of all the things like that we got from the set, that seems to be the one that it seems the closest to like Legacy playable
Yeah, possibly.
to me, but I'm no expert. Um, So the Bant commander that we get for the headliner of this deck is Estrid the Masked, and it is one green, white, blue, so one Bant colors. And it's a starts at 3 loyalty, and it's +1 is untap each enchanted permanent you control. And then -1, create a white aura enchantment token named Mask attached to another target permanent. The token has enchant permanent and totem armor. So, if don't know what totem armor is, you can sacrifice it instead of just having that permanent be destroyed. So it's a shield, pretty much like a bubble.
Yeah,
if you've played like a digital card game, it's a similar sort of effect.
It almost works like was Angelic Renewal is the enchantment from I think Weatherlight. That it was essentially a way that like white couldn't have like regenerate, so it got this.
Yeah,
and that's how totem armor kind of works.
And then -7, put the top 7 cards of your library into your graveyard. Return all non-aura enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then do the same for aura cards. I think this is a pretty nifty way to like make sure your auras get to come back and it's not really awkward or weird.
Yeah. So, this card already works well with a little card called Replenish.
Yeah,
those kind of decks, and also Bruna. If you don't remember Bruna, she's one of the 3 angels. We saw her recently in Return. I'm talking about the Avacyn Restored.
Yeah,
version.
I think she's actually in this deck too.
She is a reprint in that deck, and I've played against a couple of Bruna Commander decks in my day, and no, I'm good. Please don't. Please don't do this.
Yeah, those are Voltron decks.
Yeah,
because you just attach a bunch of stuff to them and then you you kill people.
I think it's really awesome that they actually were able to find a Planeswalker to model off Sinead O'Connor. I was
what? I'm glad they didn't include her ripping the picture of
the
Pope. Yeah, that would have been real awkward.
Oh, who's like the stand-in for that? Like just like ripping up a picture of like the head of like the Orzhov church.
Yeah,
or
sure, I
something.
guess. Some unnamed, it's just like
that's probably super blasphemous to compare that. I apologize. That's not what I was trying to do, but she does look like Sinead O'Connor. I was desperate looking for lore for this character. It doesn't exist.
I don't think we know
get
anything.
some information because I think the concept is very very cool. Like the concept of the masks and also like the idea that like she would go to different planes and like have different masks to sort of like blend in or whatever she needs to do. Maybe she finds someone to trade with so that you can trade in one mask for another mask until you eventually get all of the masks.
Yeah, and then you get the mask at the end of the game, and you turn into like the adult version of yourself with white hair.
It's really cool. So
you get like a Helix sword you defeat.
Honestly, you don't need anything besides the bunny mask. The bunny hood is what you need. You need to run fast.
Yeah.
I want to mention another legend that we got. Again, it's in the Bant colors, so it's technically just blue green. But Eric Smithies, and that's not how you say that. Eric Smithies? Does that sound better?
Eric Smithies sounds better.
Okay, the Slumbering Isles, 2 generic green blue for a 12/12 legendary creature Kraken. It enters the battlefield tapped with 5 slumber counters on it. As long as it has a slumber counter on it, it's a land, and it's not a creature. When you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter from it, and it taps to add blue-green. So before I even talk about the creature itself, the card, like that design, like just immediately spoke to me. This is inspired. Like,
this card's sweet.
It's a huge creature. It's a mana rock that slowly but surely becomes that creature. So like every time you cast something, it's kind of like and then finally it's like, all right, I'm awake. I'm hitting something for 12. But actually, this is a card that was mentioned on a card with flavor text on Theros. That like it was like a legend that Heliod had like told this city, that it was going to. I think actually the city was the Erixmathes.
And that's like, the name of the city.
Yeah, and it was like, and the next day it was gone. But the best part, Heliod didn't do anything to it. It's just, it's built on a Leviathan, so a Kraken, I should say. So, but I think like that aside, it's a really, really sweet design, and like that's pretty cool to see out of this a little bit. I also want to mention Yuriko, the Tiger Shadow, which is a generic blue and a black for a 1/3 legendary creature human ninja. This is another. So this is within the Asper deck. The other one's within the Bant deck. You get some different creatures that could also be good commanders. This one has Commander Ninjutsu, which is the coolest and weirdest thing to ever see on a card. But if you don't know, Ninjutsu was an ability where if a creature was unblocked, you could pay that cost and put the creature with Ninjutsu into play. This lets you do that even if this is in the command zone, which is really gross, actually. Like if you are avoiding commander attacks. And And it says whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, you can reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So I think that would be a sweet, like you could just like make your ninja deck and be that your commander is pretty cool.
Finally, a use for Skulk.
I guess. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. There was a pretty interesting. I don't know if you saw it at all, Morgan, but there was a pretty interesting conversation on Twitter. Corbin Hosler was talking about it, and also he was talking with it was Adam Strabowski. Is that right? He's the editor for Gathering Magic, but huge commander aficionado. Talking about how people seem to have been like a little upset at the power level of these decks, because they're not as straight. Like if you look at like, for example, we already read Estrid, or you look at like Lord Windgrace. Like these are not as straightforwardly powerful as we've seen some of the other ones be. But they mentioned how like they really tried really hard to be a little off the wall, be a little bit different, and I think that they talked about how Commander as a format is better. And granted, I'm not a huge Commander player, but I see it in Brawl too, where Commander as a format is a lot more fun when it's less about the same cards over and over again and more about your commander's identity. And I think that's kind of interesting to think about, because when you look at these, the way these decks are set up, they really do play well with their commander's identity, which is, whereas like the last few times I played actual commander, it was everyone playing the same mana rocks, the same powerful spells until they comboed off or did their broken thing with their commander. And it didn't really matter who their commander was. Like, it didn't, and I like the idea that these are focused on that identity. You mentioned Amonado and the idea of having miracles. So there's a lot of miracles in that deck, including the first black miracle. We never had one in Avacyn Restored, which was Entreat the Dead. Get it? Because the other one's Entreat the Angels. But I think, like, that is cool. Play with that idea a little bit, and obviously we've got some really interesting aura style cards and enchantment based cards in the Estrid deck. So I think that these sets I think these are good commander releases, even if it doesn't feel like, I don't know, everyone wants there to be True Name Nemesis or the Teferi's Protection or something to get you all your money back, but like these are still fine value and the cards are cool. I think it's just a little bit different take on how to design these.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that you did get some pretty cool legends. So if you don't necessarily want to, play the Planeswalkers as your commander, or if you want to like break it down to like maybe just a 2-color deck or something like that, you got some options as well. Or I guess 2-color from the 3-color decks. I know that the artifacts one is already just 2-color. So. I think you definitely have some options. I agree that this is just I think these products are so interesting because you have your diehard commander players that have all of the tools to make any commander deck that they really want, and then you have people who are like you and me that aren't really interested in commander and wouldn't really have the amount of cards needed to really get anything going. And you get this, and it's just like I feel like these decks are always best when paired against fighting like each other in like their sealed forms. So like if you just bought all 4 of these and like played with just 4 of your friends, like I think that's where these shine, because they're all on like similar power levels.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's hard. I think like for the players like you and I, it's hard to like really soup these up, just because. I think the always the painful point with Commander is like the mana bases.
Well, that's definitely true.
I think like the mana bases that you get with these decks are just like very poor.
I will give you that. And I think I mentioned that last time, we talked about it a little bit. But I agree with you on that. That's the one place where they could stand to put a little bit more pizzazz into.
Yeah, I think it's just they're wary of it. They're wary of it because they want these to be for the casual player, just to find them at their big box store and get. So they don't want the people who are trying to get value to just like snatch them all up, which is that what happens when you have those powerful legacy cards.
No, for sure, and we've seen it pretty much with every wave. We've had at least one commander deck that
you have to get.
Did you have to? It's just so more expensive, and it just happens. Anyways, can I mention one more card because I think it's awesome?
Yeah,
I want to mention Crash of Rhino Beetles. So this is 4 generic and a green for a 5/5 creature insect. has trample, and it says Crash of Rhino Beetles gets +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. I want to mention this only because one of the first cards I have like a real strong memory of was Crash of Rhinos, which is a Mirage card. It's an 8/4 creature with trample because a group of rhinos called Crash. So I love the callback to the Crash of Rhinos or the Crash of Rhino Beetles, and the art is just kind of awesome. I don't know what a Rhino Beetle actually like. These are a bunch of Heracross.
Yeah.
But I just like I love that is such a random callback to like, oh, it's Crash of Rhino. Oh, Rhino Beetles. I get it. And it made me smile when I read it. So
yeah, it's good. Yeah, I think there's a lot of those cards. I'm super disappointed because we usually get like one, maybe two potential adds to Dave's Common and Common Cube, and we just struck out.
Yeah, they didn't really set it up for that.
No, there are some like the mechanic they put on the new uncommons are Lieutenant.
Yeah, that's what we talked about last week.
And and there weren't any new ones, and some of them would be fine if that's just what they did, but they have to have like obviously they'd be really good. They'd probably be rares if they just always did what they did.
That's true, I suppose. I will say this about the Lieutenant cards, specifically Loyal Guardian, which is the Rhino, the green version of this. Find yourself someone in life who strokes your face like the person is stroking that rhino's face.
Find someone that looks at you the way that Rhino looks at you, theoretically. The way this art is set up.
It's just so tender. That's what it feels like.
It's
just
very
like
intimate.
There's
a real connection there.
Like somebody is definitely playing like an old 45 of like, "Are you lonesome tonight?" Just like Elvis Presley in the background.
I mean, the loyal anytime that they're most of the time they're animals. It's definitely like a petting sort of theme.
That rhino looks like it's humanoid though. It looks like it's standing it looks more like a rocks than an actual like rhino. If that makes sense. I don't know if rocks are if they are rocks or if they are just like. Because like Leonin are cat, right? Leonin, that's a creature type. So I think rocks is just rhino. So I think it's a rocks. I don't think it's a pet. I think that's a humanoid. That's a sapient being.
It could be.
That's a sapient being who's like, thank you for touching me like this.
I appreciate this. This is appropriate.
the narrator voice. This is appropriate, narrator. It wasn't. Anyways, though, we can move away from that, Commander. I hope if you pick it up and you play with it, I hope you have fun. Let us know if you enjoyed it.
And to the people complaining that there's not some like busted card that's going to be $1 million in one of these, stop it.
Yeah, I agree.
Just stop it. MTG Finance is sometimes the worst thing that is part of this community.
It is weird that you feel like you deserve to make money off of something.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I say that like we haven't complained about value before. Like we have. Sometimes things are overpriced, but like this is not. Like this is not a place where you're supposed to be like, oh, this is their pre-constructed product. I should be able to make immediate money off of
this
you.
Isn't like a master set or something like that.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
All right.
So something that we neglected to talk about that kind of happened because we immediately were upset about it and forgot about it after it was announced was the Silver Showcase. Now, if you don't know about this, I will read from the blurb on WotC's Magic Gatherings website. So, the Silver Showcase will be a Rochester draft event like no other. As players Rochester draft 3 packs of limited edition beta, 1 pack of Arabian Nights, 1 pack of Antiquities, and 1 pack each of Legends. Which, by the way, sounds miserable. It's fun watching these packs get opened. That is where the excitement stops. All right, these sets, first of all, not made to be drafted. Certainly not together.
Notices that's why there's a lot more packs than there were in the the first one because like you don't have to take like just 50 lands. Antiquities though in general, nope, kind of unplayable.
Yeah, exactly.
So
also the Legends, like come on.
I mean, yeah, at least you got a bunch of just like stupid 4/4s for 9.
Magic's weird.
There's a lot of like you'll literally get Legends. I just want to hear them commentate and have to say like, here's Jeffrey the Torwell Lumber. What? I don't know. These are the Legends, man. I just say the names.
There's Nebuchadnezzar.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Real card.
At least we can just say like Stang.
Yeah, there's Stang and his brother, Other Stang.
Other Stang. Oh man.
Stang token.
Oh snap! It's that Swamp King Solkanar. That's really good.
Anyway, This is going to take place on Thursday, August 2nd at the Minneapolis Convention Center. So it's going to take place right before the Pro Tour. And it's going to be single elimination rounds that will take place after the conclusion of each day of the competition. So you're going to, after the,
draft
after the Pro
Thursday,
Tour has ended,
then they'll play the first set of matches Friday, and then
Saturday and Sunday. Well, I don't know if Sunday.
The
Saturday
finals,
evening.
right?
Its finals is going to be on Sunday morning.
Yeah,
there we go.
That sounds real dumb, but all right.
Sure. People like to have their really bad. Like they gotta draft these terrible decks, and then like continue playing them for days theoretically.
Yeah, that's what's kind of weird about it.
That's like torture.
Again, like watching the draft part of it.
That's gonna be the best part.
Just like the beta draft is exciting, but then like I don't watch any of the matches because like people literally had to draft 10 lands. I don't want to see their deck.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time. So let's talk about who's actually going to be there. So we have Raphael Levy, French Hall of Famer. Makes sense. Shuhei Nakamura, again, Japanese Hall of Famer as well. John Finkel, again, U.S. Hall of Famer. Paulo Vitor Domino Rosa, Brazilian Hall of Famer. Brian Kibler, notable Hearthstone player. He's also
a Hall of Famer.
He's also a U.S. Hall of Famer.
Notable Hearthstone
player. We have Stanislav Sivka, who won a Pro Tour.
Notable egg.
notable eggsman, also notable Hearthstone player.
Yep.
We have David Williams,
chef de jour.
Plays a lot of poker. Also known to play some Magic sometimes.
He's literally listed on here for his appearance on MasterChef. Man, like he's a chef.
Yep. And then we have Jason Chan, better known as Amaz, who's one of the most prominent streamers of trading card games. Notable Hearthstone player. Occasionally plays Magic Arena.
Fun fact, I'm old. Had never heard of this person before.
They have been trying to push Amaz so hard for the longest time. They're trying to push a Day 9 when Day 9 was big. And
I knew at least a little. Amaz never even heard of.
They're trying to push Amaz because Amaz is, again, one of the largest TCG streamers online. So this is your Silver Showcase. This is the illustrious motley crew of Hall of Famers and Hearthstone streamers. They're going to be invited to draft beta. Now, it's important that I believe the cards are going to be auctioned off. So the cards they draft are going to be auctioned off for Child's Play. So like that's important. I think like obviously this means that you're going to have people that draft serious. I don't know how you draft these early sets seriously, but you won't have people rare drafting. You're gonna take a piece of power because it's still good. Like I guess whatever. Anyway, so that takes it out of it. So whatever. Who cares? And there is prize money. And I know that some of the people participating have already stated that they're going to be donating their prize money.
Kibler, I know for sure is definitely donating it. We should mention how much prize money because it's a lot of money.
It's $150,000
divided,
through top 8.
35,000 for first, and that was a 25,000 for second, 20,000 each to third and fourth, then 12.5 to all the top, and like
5th through 8th,
5th through 8th, sorry, and like. So one of the things that we saw on Twitter about this was like a lot of pros being upset about this because like Amaz, for example, Sivka, Kibler, like these people who haven't really been heralds of the game, either ever or in a long time, and actively chose a different revenue stream than Magic, like had the option to do, like Kibler was doing the Pro Tour and then like, no, I'm going to do this now. That seems really weird. To give them that kind of money for that. I'm not saying like I don't want to sound like they're undeserving in general, but like it does seem weird to call it your Silver Showcase, do one of the rarest drafts you'll ever see, and just be like, "Hey, you barely play Magic." That's weird.
Well, it's not the Gold Showcase. It's not the Platinum Showcase. I don't know. This seems weird. This seems like a weird publicity stunt to like invite some of these people so that they can try to convert their viewer base over to watch this and get people interested in Magic? No, because you're not.
Yeah.
Because you're drafting like older
Yeah.
sets and that are bad, are actively bad for the most part. In like card design wise, because it's so early
Yeah,
and
the thrill is
busted either.
opening it, I guess, which is why
Yeah,
they're getting the whole day for that.
but it's thrilling for us because
right,
we
no, I
know
agree. I agree.
it's not thrilling for people who mainly watch Hearthstone. So I don't get this. This seems like a really bad disservice to the game. There are plenty of other faces and names that deserve to be a part of this and have contributed a lot more. Because like yeah, John Finkel is one of the most famous people that that plays Magic, but most of the times you really just see him at like maybe local GPs and Pro Tours,
Right.
and that's it. And it's just like there are a lot more people that are actively putting positive things into the game that they could have invited, and really made this about Magic instead about publicity. And this just feels like it's about publicity. So I don't get it. I think it's a really stupid event. In all honesty, that I will still probably watch because I'm a sucker. But I'll probably just watch them opening packs, and then
Yeah,
I'm never gonna watch any of the matches.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. This is a weird thing. It's a weird thing to spend a lot of money on. I understand that this is like them trying to celebrate like like the anniversary, like 25th anniversary of the game. Like I get that. It just seems like I don't know. It just seems weird. It just seems weird. When people had to like fight to make sure that like the beta draft got streamed, the unlimited draft in Chiba wasn't like
Yeah.
and then for like oh, but we're gonna go to this.
The drafts, some of the GPs have just like not been televised, which is true. But yeah, I don't know. I don't get this, but sometimes WotC makes weird choices, and who knows like how many people that actively had a choice to really make about this actually happening. Who knows where this came from. As far as who organized it, it could have just been like a bunch of suits being like, "Yeah, let's just make an event and invite a bunch of Hearthstone streamers."
Right? Yeah, it's weird.
That tacitly also are related to Magic. I do think that David Williams is the weirdest one. He's the weirdest one. I have no ill will towards Dave Williams.
Yeah.
I knew him from poker more than I knew him from Magic, to be perfectly honest.
But he's been on TV. He's gonna cook up a little magic.
It just feels like such a disservice. It's such a disservice. It's so insulting to be like, yeah, I poured my heart and soul into this community. I do X, Y, and Z for the betterment of the community as well as for myself. I'm not gonna say this is like the wholly altruistic, but I don't know. Dave Williams don't do anything.
Yeah, it's fine.
He gets to potentially win money. I'm sure he is probably doing it. I can
like,
imagine like you don't want to be the guy that's like, I'm keeping my prize money.
Maybe not. Like I don't harbor any ill will towards any of these players who got picked by WotC to do this. Like, make your money, do what you want with it. But like, I will say that it's just a weird decision in a lot of ways for WotC. So if you're excited about it, good, watch it, enjoy. Like I said, I want to watch in the draft. But like,
if you're excited about it, explain it to us.
Well, like, I don't think anybody can be like excited about it in a traditional way. It's not like there was like build up to it. Like it got announced right at the end of June.
Yeah,
and then it was just like, hey, this is the thing that we're gonna do. And then like when you're like, so you're not marketing it for real. I don't understand how this is possibly a good thing. I do not get it.
Yeah, I don't know like, who's it for.
I'm glad for Child's Play. I'm glad for that.
That's good. I'm glad that's going to happen. I hope
it's a weird thing.
The exciting thing is like you can really hope they open big and open some expensive cards because all that money is going towards a good cause. So that's nice. But enough about this stupid silver showcase. Let's talk about the actual Pro Tour. So this is going to be Pro Tour Magic 25. 25th anniversary Pro Tour. So this is not necessarily at all connected to M19.
No, it's not at all. There's not even a draft portion.
There's no draft portion. It is team trios. This is the first time in a long time that we're going to get some legacy in the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I think it's unless I read it wrong from what the article said, it's actually the only time we've ever had actual legacy on the Pro Tour.
Fair enough, because the last time those powerful cards were standard. Like they were just like standard or type 2, or extended legal or whatever. But Team Trios definitely adds a different layer. I think this would have been more exciting had we not had a bunch of Team Trios events that are kind of saturating. I think we might have had some buyer's regret with Team Trios events. I think where it's like, yeah, Team Trios is awesome. I love Team Trios, and then it's like, okay, how about all Team Trios? And you're like, no,
No,
I want some broccoli now. I'm tired of ice cream for dinner. I regret what I've chosen.
This is the example of like the dad making the son smoke
It's
the
a
whole carton.
a whole carton
It's
of
like,
cigarettes. Oh, you want to smoke? Oh
no,
yeah.
okay, it worked. It worked. But no, I don't feel like way about this. Like I know that's been an SCG conversation a little bit, but I think that like for a pro tour, like this is a cool thing to see. Like I think like deck selection, all of it is really interesting, and like I also get interested to see what teams like, because obviously we have like the teams as far as like the actual large teams, but I think like the 3-person teams, like those configurations are interesting. So I mean, obviously Peach Gardeau is going to win it, but like, what other team really stands a chance? But I think that it's pretty interesting to see, and I'm excited to watch it unfold. Now, we normally talk about like what decks we expect to do well. I think that's a little bit different. That's a different conversation for this, right? Like, we talked before about how when they brought the Modern Pro Tour back, that we liked that a little bit because it allowed people to be masters of different formats. You know, we there were a bunch of players that we learned by name because of Modern, like a Dickman or like a
McLaren.
Yeah, like a McLaren or something like that. You know, like I think that, or McLean even, like, you know what I mean? Like I think that
Sivka.
Sivka, that's true. And I think it's cool to see that, and I wonder if there's some players who they're on the Pro Tour, maybe like Legacy is really like their jam, and there's something they want to do with that. Obviously, we had some bannings of Legacy too, which is going to sort of shake up for the Pro Tour. So I don't really know how to peg decks going into this. We're going to talk about Modern here in a little bit with the Modern Open, so we can see where decks are for that. Standard is pretty much still similar, though we did see a cool deck win the Classic, a deck that's had some PT pedigree fairly recently. I don't know what do you have? What do you think about like deck selection for this PT?
I think like Standard, you probably won't see very much deviation from the norm necessarily, except for like maybe like the Paradoxical Outcome deck. Maybe that could be something you see a little bit more, or there are some other spicy Standard brews because you said something interesting.
Zombies did
the classic. So Mono Black Zombies. So
I was trying to allude to it. Sorry.
You could have like a rogue deck, something like that, kind of break through, but I still think like mono green, red black, mono red, and some sort of like maybe a control variant or like a blue black mid range. I think that for Standard I kind of perceive that to be the case. But I could also see someone just like showing up with, again, like the mono blue Paradoxical Outcome, Aetherflux Reservoir.
Yeah, that's fair.
Kind of just show up and be like, yeah, I took this because I didn't think anyone was going to be prepared for it, and swept the field. But I think the weird thing is like, but with team decks and team deck selection, especially at the Pro Tour, I think people are just going to be leaning towards playing the best deck because you still like. I don't know how much you want to take a gamble bringing something roguish when you have team members you can lean on potentially.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if you don't want to bring something roguish and be like the busted wheel on the tricycle, and I think like Modern is diverse enough that you have a lot of decks that can very easily compete. And there's a lot of decks that are just still just good. You still have Tron, I think people are pretty confident with. You still have Humans, which I think is still pretty all right, and Maru Pyromancer, Jeskai Control, or even Blue White Control, something like that.
I mean, Jund won the Open.
Yeah,
so...
it's kind of interesting how you have a lot of depth still in Modern. So I think there's a lot of viable decks like that you could pick from, and it's not like any deck really dominates that format at current. I think it kind of vacillates from week to week what is going to be the best deck. So I think Legacy, you might see people clamp down and really try to focus on playing like just like show and tell or something like that, something combo-y, and people maybe trying to play like Death and Taxes to counter that. Or I don't expect to see a lot of Delver decks. I think that's my proclamation is I don't think that people are going to want to try to be doing that in the in Legacy. I think they're going to want to either be playing like a control-y route, whether that be like a control prison sort of aggro deck that taxes is, or they're going to want to be doing something very combo-y or fast.
My bold prediction is I bet that Stoneblade is a popular choice.
Yeah, something slower.
Yeah, I think
and mid-rangey.
I think that appeals to a lot of people, like a lot of those kind of players. Like
I could see that.
those kind of decks. I am excited to see whatever team presents like Legacy Burn, Modern Burn, and then Mono Red, like and Standard, just all the mountains.
Mountains that deck. Yeah, I mean, like you can even like that could be kind of compelling. And like Legacy Bird is just always a deck that's there, but no one really takes seriously. So like you could really potentially surprise people by playing that in your Legacy seat.
I think so. I think that like I do think that the all-time high for how good like a Price of Progress would have been before the ban.
Yeah, I think that card falls short a little bit now.
But at the same time, like Deathrite Shaman was a problem for Burn because of the
having a built-in hate card is definitely rough.
Burn's always been like, it's not like Modern where like Burn top 8 to the open. Like Burn's always been sort of fringe in Legacy, but the cards that you get, when I talk about Price of Progress and obviously Fire Blast, I think are fun to sort of mess around with. So
yeah,
I hope there's at least one team that's just like pure, just like fire. This is what it is.
Some other so we're going to talk about the Modern Classic, but there are some other interesting like sort of developments that are kind of happening in Modern. One of them is the red-black Vengevine deck that kind of has been catching on. I don't know if people have been, watching any sort of tournament results or anything like that, but this is a list that has been showing up a little bit on Magic Online and then did kind of well. It had like a top 16 at the Classic. But this is a deck that kind of uses the power of Stitcher Supplier to, again, have a lot of velocity, put some creatures in your graveyard, and have a lot of cheap creatures that you can cast. 8 of them being for 0 mana, mind you.
That's fair.
With Hangerback Walker and Walking Ballista to sort of get a quick Vengevine in on the battlefield, as soon as theoretically turn 1. And also uses another engine card, Bridge from Below, to power out a bunch of zombies because you are, again, this is whenever a creature is put into a graveyard. It doesn't say it says from the battlefield. Bridge from Below it's a soup. All right, you have to read a few times to understand.
It's whenever a creature you control dies, you non-token, you get a 2/2 zombie. Whenever a creature your opponent control dies, you exile Bridge from Below. That is literally how it works. Trust me, I played against this deck a number of times on Magic Online.
It combos obviously with the Hangerback Walker and the Walking Ballista.
Walking Ballista, or the Neonate. Fun fact with Neonate too, if you use its ability to discard
here, to sack all your guys.
If you use the Neonate's ability to discard the bridge, you do get a token. If you're wondering about timing for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because the discard is part of the payment.
Nice.
So it sees it.
That's smart.
The first time it happened, I literally sat there with it on the stack for a minute going, wait, what just happened? And I was like, oh, I could piece this together.
So there's obviously a lot of interesting, fun things going on with this list that, again, can catch people off guard. And it is fast. It uses Goblin Bushwhacker as its sort of kill card. And, you could make a lot of zombies and suddenly give them all haste and +1/+0, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty
sometimes
good. It just kills people. So I think we'll also note that Infect is what won the actual Classic, and Infect has kind of been showing up a little bit more regularity in Modern since it's the Gitaxian Probe got banned and it took a little bit of a hit.
Well, maybe we should move our conversation then towards the competitive and the open things. I think that
sure.
I'm excited for this Pro Tour, but it is really a difficult one to sort of, you can't just metagame and pick here, even with a core set coming out. So I think it'll be interesting to see what teams sort of do, and I wish we could offer more insight than that.
I think it's compelling because I wonder how many people deferred that could defer their Pro Tour invite because there's no draft.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I wonder how many people felt like their constructed game just wasn't good enough.
I mean, if you're the
on a team and just was like, no, I'll just wait.
If you're the kind of person who qualified via like the PBTQ into a sealed RPTQ or like a sealed GP, and like that is your game, yeah, you might that might be a little difficult. Also, like if you're the kind of person who qualified, but like maybe you qualified at GP just going X2, but in top 8, and like you don't like, or you qualified in a fashion that doesn't give you a plane ticket, then like it might have been hard for you and 2 other people to make it out there. So yeah, that'll be interesting too. So.
All right, so before we move into competitive, do you want to give a shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town? They have an M19 sealed PPTQ with 1K store credit as the prize split amongst the top 8. It's going to be Saturday, August 4th, so if you're not attending Gen Con locally, you can definitely come down to Comic Town and sign up for this event. A players' meeting will be at 11 a.m., and it only costs $30 to enter, so go qualify for the next regional by coming to Comic Town.
And this one will be, not for this Pro Tour we're talking about. So you don't have to worry about no drafting. You'll draft.
You'll draft. Yeah, the Pro Tour you'll draft. Hopefully. Theoretically, I mean, unless they do something wild and crazy.
Never mind. I don't know what sarcastic comment I could make, but there's too many of them.
Okay. So, jumping to competitive, of course, we had 2 GPs. We had GP Turin and GP Minneapolis. So, they were both limited, though, which...
is really awkward.
It's so funny because that would be fine if there was an actual limited portion to this Pro Tour.
GP in Minnesota the week before the Pro Tour does not help you.
But there is
in
not.
Any fashion.
I guess you kind of are okay with it if you are a participant in the Pro Tour, so you don't have to like show off what deck you could be playing.
But it's just weird that like it doesn't help you in any way.
Oh no, not at all. So GP Turin was won by Zhao Choka. And GP Minneapolis was won by Magnus Lanto, winning over a field containing Ken Yukihiro and Kentaro Yamamoto, which, very, very, good Japanese Magic players that are probably, in town for the Pro Tour, of course. So, but the main bulk of our discussion is going to be Star City Games Indianapolis, which broke my heart that we didn't get a chance to go to. But obviously, with it butting up right against Gen Con,
it broke my heart. And then they had a 3-hour break.
Oh, that's true.
In between rounds 3 and 4, and then my heart healed.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like, oh wait, I'm not just stuck here. I could actually just like go live my life. So anyone who attended Star City Games Indianapolis, sorry for your loss of time. I didn't hear about anything. I don't think like they did anything to like, compensate any of the players. I don't think they really could or should, I guess. But man, it's just a feel bad situation.
It's bad. It's real bad.
Hey, Watsy, fix your software. Like, come on, it's the 21st century. We're literally on the verge of like cars driving themselves and flying as jet suits. You could be Iron Man and have your self-driving car, but like we can't run a 900-person tournament and not have it crash. Come on. Be better.
You got him.
I did. So let's take a look here at the what I want to take a look is the day 2 metagame breakdown. So before we jump into the top performing lists and everything like that. So what we see from this is that humans kind of had a resurgence. The bugler sounded his call. The Horn of Gondor, the blue or whatever, and the humans all showed up to the party. As it turns out.
Your ability to describe situations and make comparisons today is just like on the point. I want you to understand. It's like somebody made a loud sound with a like a horn instrument of some kind, and people responded.
Showed up. Yeah, it's weird. Followed surprisingly by Jund. Now, noted former host Dave Nolan profoundly called this deck at our Cube event not good. Called it worse. Martyr Pyromancer. Yet it won cut to the chase and won the tournament this weekend, as it turns out. So don't count Jund out. I think like it came into a metagame that it probably had a pretty good handle on with humans being popular. Definitely favors that's a favor that the metagame did for Jund. And then you have decks like Control, which technically Blue White X Control had 10 decks. Because you had
this is true.
It technically was the most represented, but I think those decks are different enough to really separate them. And even though they are trying to do sort of the same thing, I really think that Jund kind of has a an interesting matchup against those lists because you're the mid range list. You theoretically should be able. You do have tools to fight them. You have a lot of discard. You have a lot of value. But sometimes the bane of your existence can be the counter spells they have.
I think that when you look at that sort of traditional matchup, Liliana the Veil is obviously very, very good against control decks, and even like that's where we talk about like Tarmogoyf having disappeared for a little bit. Tarmogoyf's pretty good against those Jeskai lists. Like they have Path, but they also have a lot of like 3 damage burn spells, and your 2-drop gets in underneath it and is generally just bigger than that. So they've got to do a little bit more work and have to expend more resources to really deal with that card. You back it up with the pressure of like a Scavenging Ooze, which is just good against Snapcaster Mages, and Bloodbraid Elf, which really does work against counter spells. You're going to get 2 spells. I can see that a good Jund player definitely can sort of navigate. But yeah, I do want to say that the Black Red Hollow +1 had 3 showings. I don't know, it's just a typo, but I actually like that as a deck name. Hollow? +1 actually.
+1 actually. And we also had Burn showing up as Burn Infinity both showing up as 5-ofs into day 2. And Burn actually showing up and Infinity showing up in the top 8. So those aggressive decks, just as well as humans, are definitely still around. And kind of see like Black Red Hollow one showing up a little bit less prominent, and Mardu Pyromancer again. All the Mardu Pyromancer lists decided to switch over just back to Jund and try it out for the weekend. I feel like Pyromancer should have a positive matchup against Jund, though. Does that make sense? Like Lingering Souls seems like it's still an obvious beating.
I definitely agree. I think it should as well, but
maybe there just weren't as many day 1 players of it.
That's true. And there's at least one. I think it's actually in the classic, but there's one Pyromancer deck that'll be sweet to look at. Just because it has a really cool card in it. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go into these lists.
Yeah, let's look at the top 8 or the top 32.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Michael Olson was the Jund winner, defeating Ryan Ferries playing Burn in the finals. I think it's surprising that Jund actually went through Brett Cohen playing Mono Green Tron.
I watched that. Well, I watched that match, and it was the game. Like game 1, Tron did Tron things. Game 2, like he managed to get a little bit ahead and just was able to ride some creatures. Like it was just. And then game 3 though was like the dream scenario for Jund, where he was able to stick an early Dark Confidant and hit Fulminary Mages with it, and the Tron player who was Brett Cohen sort of spun his wheels a little bit, and he was able to just like be aggressive enough and draw enough like lands and spells where he got to the point where he had multiple Fulminator Mages and he had Call Against commands, and Blood Red Elf was able to like, move him into these things, and it really didn't matter.
Just out attrition him basically.
Yeah, so it was not a common thing to see, but like literally game 3 is like if you are trying to win that matchup, this is how you do it.
Yeah, that's how it has to. That's how it has to happen.
And I gotta say, watching Michael Olson pilot was pretty impressive. He also he lost game 1 to Burn in the burniest Burn fashion. Now I know that Ryan Ferries also had some mulliganing issues in the matchup, but like you had some pretty good like keeps and just good play overall from Olson to sort of take down a difficult match. You could see like in game 3 where he was lucky to have the double fatal push, but he sequenced it so that he kept his discard spell for later so he could get the most value out of his fatal pushes, and essentially very quickly was able to leave Ryan Ferries with no cards in hand. And then once that happens, like you land a Goyf or a Scavenging Ooze,
it's lights out.
It's so hard for the Burn player to really crawl back into it. So just a good job on him. It's a good pilot. Looking at the list, there's nothing too spicy. I do like Chandra Pyromaster in the sideboard. Hey, Bay, I miss you. Torch, don't get me wrong, Torch Defiance, it's great. Yeah, but Pyromaster, I don't know.
I think that's an interesting choice. I wonder what the decision behind that is. I wonder what abilities that she has really kind of a.
I would say Pyromancer is probably one of the things where she's just very, very good against Mardu Pyromancer. That's a difficult planeswalker for any 4-mana planeswalkers in general are difficult to deal with.
Just being able to tick up and ping.
Yeah, like it's just very good against and like. You could argue that Liliana the Last Hope has really been the card that you've seen in that slot for that reason. But if you're expecting more Abrupt Decays and like a card that's a little bit better against like Lightning Bolt, for example, I think you'd want to have the Pyromaster. So it makes sense to me.
Fair enough. Next up, we have 4th place Humans list piloted by Samuel Gravener.
Humans and 4th and 5th place.
Correct. The 5th place player, Jim Davis. The next one we have is sort of the deck of the tournament. Blue Red Wizards, piloted by Jeff Hoogland. A
I know
notable
I've said this mostly. It's Hoagland.
Hoagland, yeah, Jeff Hoagland, a notable top eightsman of the Star City Games tournament series. Um, After that, we have Blue Red Gift Storm, and then in eighth place, Blue Red Gift Storm piloted by Caleb Shearer. Sorry, you just should assume it's one of
Yeah,
the
no,
two
it's fair.
Storm brothers. And then eighth place is Affinity piloted by Leonard Wernet Leff.
Let's take a minute here to talk about the Blue Red Wizards deck.
Yes, Wizards.
Because I don't know if you know this, but it was also in 16th place, almost the exact same build.
Yes, I think there's only two in day two, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and it was they both did well. And honestly, I know Hoagland went undefeated day one.
He had a concession that he had to go get lunch. So I think he went technically undefeated in the entire tournament.
Oh wow, okay, fair enough. And then he lost in the top 8 awkwardly, but interesting list for sure.
He lost to
Jund, right? Didn't he?
No, he lost to Humans.
Oh no, he lose to Humans.
He lost to Humans in like a fairly like unbelievable fashion, where he was just like drew 2 lands and like died to a Mantis Rider that he ended up not being able to answer, which is wild.
Yeah, honestly, I think if you watched him play this deck throughout the tournament, Humans was one of the reasons that this deck was pretty viable.
You don't want to play against this deck with Humans. It's a bit rough.
Yeah, honestly, it's a Delver deck. You see Delver Secrets, Grimlavamancer, which is very good against Humans.
Yeah.
Obviously, Snapcaster Mage. He had a singleton spell sorter sprite. The other list of Wizards was playing all 4 sprites. Wizards, by the way, I don't know if you know that. 4 Nimble Obstructionist, which is your cycling friend from Amonkhet, or Our Devastation, I should say. And then 2 Vanilla Click. And then it's just a bunch of burn and counter spells. Burst Lightning, Lightning Bolt, Opt, Spell Snare, Mana Leak, Remand, and 4 Wizards Lightning. Also playing 4 Mutavault, interestingly enough. I wish it was playing Adelies.
Yeah, Mutavault, still Wizard.
Yeah, it's still Wizard, but I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, like, you just saw a regular Delver Secrets sort of doing well against a lot of decks. Specifically, when you look at the Humans decks, like, outside of, like, Reflector Mage, and then Mantis Rider blocks, they don't really have much to do. And you saw, again, go watch multiple games with Hoagland. He would go turn 1 Delver, and if he flipped it early enough, that was enough to win against Humans, because he could kill whatever creature was important at the time. I think, like, if you look at the way his list is set up, he has the 4 bolts, but also 4 Wizards Lightning, and those 2 Burst Lightning are super important, because, like, what is your Metal Mage name then? You know what I mean? Do you say Lightning Bolt? Do you say Wizards Lightning? Like, there's so many options that you can play around it. Obviously, the Grimlavamancer is very good. The deck I actually played at FNM this week, played 4 of them. Can confirm Grimlavamancer, great. Still great. I thought it was a pretty interesting deck to see, and I think that sort of tempo-y archetype that I've dabbled in. Obviously, former host Dave loves.
Big fan of Delver Secrets.
Dave is definitely already building this deck.
Yes,
just it's already been done.
He bought $4 worth of cards for me because like Nimble Obstructionists and Alpine Moon's not expensive.
No, weird how that works. So yeah, I think it was a pretty interesting take. I have no idea if this deck actually has a huge role to play in the format, but it certainly seems that as long as decks like Humans are popular, then decks that are going to play this many bolts and then Snapcasters with flying threats are going to have a pretty interesting chance against it.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just I think like this is just where you want to look for if you want like to play a nice little tempo deck, and I think if you are, I think this deck is probably pretty hard to play, and this isn't necessarily a deck where you're always seeing your Delver slip. There are multiple instances where like that just didn't happen for Right. He's only playing 21 spells, so it's not going to be as common as your legacy decks, which you can't really build a deck in modern like legacy and have as much success with it. But I think this deck is something that a lot of people are going to be interested in, and I think like that is something for something to really take a look at for modern decks, is like if you get people interested in something, usually it has a habit of sticking around.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And plus, like the nice thing is it's going to be something that we can potentially look to Guilds of Ravnica to potentially supply cards for, because I think that's it. I looked it up today because I know we already guessed it. I know it's Boros, Selesnya, because I was like, Naya.
I know it's not Azorius because MTG Goldfish article told me today.
Yeah. So, but it's definitely something that you could take a look at. to
Yeah.
get improvement within the
Don't
next
don't get rid of your
future.
Spire Bluff Canals at rotation.
Oh yeah, no.
So, do you want to talk about a couple other quick decks?
Go ahead.
Naya Zoo coming in the top 16, 12th place by Mark Onlicker, and pretty consistent version of this. I say consistent, we haven't seen it in a while, but it does run the full gambit. We have Birds, Noble Hierarch, Wild Nakata, obviously, Kozali Pride Mage, Scavenging Ooze, Avid Mind Sensors, Knight of the Reliquary, one Thalia Heretic Cathar, two Huntmaster of the Fellows, a Baneslayer Angel, and a Johnny Vengeant, and ready for this? One Arlen Cord.
Arlen Cord's pretty good.
I like Arlen Cord. Arlen Cord definitely eats a bolt pretty hard, which I'm not a huge fan of. But Arlen Cord has a lot of I think like that the +1 on the front side is interesting, but when I was trying that card out even in standard, that +1 on the back side where like you give your team trample, like giving trample to things like your Knight of the Reliquary is a big deal against Pyromancer or anything that's going to present like little token roadblocks, Affinity, those sorts of decks. Like you can just get an attack in.
Yeah.
So
I feel like in this list and a lot of these lists we typically see Dominant Raid.
Yeah, that's fair.
In one of those slots, and I can't. I love me some Dominant Raid.
So do I. I think that like Dominant Raid's +1 is so frustrating at times.
I think in this particular, because you have 9 spells, I think like if you were going to play Dominant Raid, you just
want more creatures.
Yeah, I think you're cutting probably some number of you're playing like 4 paths potentially, and maybe a couple bolts.
It also has a Dromoka's Command.
Yeah, the Dromoka's Command is pretty versatile. It does a lot of things, which is exactly what you want for your moto spell. So I'm sure like when it's good, it's very good. But man, it can be like really disappointing. So 1 is probably correct, but I think like Shalai in the sideboard is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I will say I'm sort of confused about some of the creature choices and like the numbers of creatures, especially in the sideboard. It's built. The sideboard's built, and the main deck is built like you are a
toolbox deck, like a core deck or something like that, like a bunch of 1-ofs.
Yeah, like it's kind of weird. Like you have no way to, unless I'm crazy, you'd have no way to go and get that. So I that is a little odd to me. But
I agree, because you have like a 1-of Avid Mind Sensor where it's like that's good when you can like chord for it, but
yeah, otherwise I'm not. And like looking at the sideboard, like the Shalai and the Thrawn, that's fine. Like this Sigarda, like I guess you're bringing all those things together. But like one Hushwing Griff, for example, like. Okay, like maybe. So I don't know. I'm glad it did well. I'm glad to see a strategy like this do well, but this one does seem sort of like all over the place.
Yeah, I agree. I like these lists. I wish they were like I wish they were better, or because I really would want to like just like have a deck like this that just plays like all the favorites.
It's just like it feels so much like the Naya Pod decks back from Avacyn Restore or in the New Phyrexian area where you had. You were potting into Thragtusk and like Restoration Angel and then
I'm just gonna I'm just gonna end up getting like a playset of Neither Reliquary and just like look at him and be like one day
I'll play you
one day.
We should mention Living End in 13th place, and I like these different. I've seen a couple of these newer builds that are playing a lot of the newer cyclers, specifically Horror of the Broken Lands, which I think that if you haven't played against this, Living End is still a strategy that has a very specific way you can beat it. And I think if you look at the top 32 list of this in the Classic as well, the top 16, there's a lot of like Leyline of the Voids, for example, which makes this deck sort of a non-starter. But things like Horror of the Broken Lands, you don't really need many of those to be in play for your deck to just like all of a sudden those attack for a ton of damage.
Yeah, they just get a hand.
Like you're no longer getting like just like really bad Living Ends where you're like, okay, well I'm dead in 3 attacks. Like no, if you have like 1 or 2 of these in play, like you better have blockers, otherwise you're actually just done.
Yeah.
So that is I think a fun way, and of course it has Archfiend of Ifnir too, which I think took a little while to see more copies of in Living End, but like another alternative sort of win condition. So it's
cool. I mean, especially like let's say you're playing against humans and you're locked out of your Living End. You don't have a way around that. You don't have a Beast Within or anything like that. your Archfiend is a castable back end way to like actually clear their board and win.
Right, and just like attacks for 5 flying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've seen a number of like dragons be good recently. Like 5 power flyers are still fine in the format. So
Obviously, with that style of play, you're probably casting this on like 6 or 7, and having a couple cyclers, so you can get, even if they reflector mage, like you're still going to be able to get value, and they have to commit something to the board still that's just going to get counters on it.
Exactly.
I think Living End is like one of those decks that always hangs around and people kind of underestimate it, and it definitely has like its very poor matchups. But sometimes it's just fast enough to get people.
Yeah, that's what you have to be, which is nice. Lastly, before we switch to the classic, I do want to mention there was a copy of Banned Spirits in top 32, but there's also a copy of just straight blue-white Spirits in 18th place by Eric Shoopman. And I wanted I know, Morgan, you've been actively looking to build this deck, the Banned Spirits deck specifically.
Yeah.
But did you take a look at this one?
Yeah, it's really cool. Because so there was a initial typo with this list when it got published. It was saying it was playing 4 Supreme Verdicts, which is hilarious.
That's not.
No,
I mean,
it's
with
4
Selfless
Supreme...
Spirit, that's a cool combo.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, hey, there you go. You can sack this. All my things are indestructible. Supreme Verdicts, attack like that works, right? That's how you do that, right? No, this is 4 Supreme Phantom. So this list is certainly interesting. But you're playing this because you get to play 4 caverns. Like 4 caverns, 4 caverns is really, really nice.
And you're playing Vial, so you're not playing. In this case, you're not playing Company at all.
Yeah, and I that's the thing that I think I dislike about it.
It's fair. I will say. What do you think about Kira?
I think you should be playing Kira in any version of Spirits. I think personally, I think Kira is a super annoying card. That's what made, like, when Merfolk was like playable. That's what helped make it playable for the longest time, because like Kira is super annoying against, especially if things like Jund and like Mardu Pyromancer are going to be doing well. Like, yeah, they don't want to see Kira. That card's like busted. So, and like you still hit it with a Collected Company. Like I still think it's good. It's probably a little bit rough on your mana, obviously, but I still think it's worth it to play it. As far as like cards that just get you value.
Yeah.
I think there's interesting aspects about just being blue-white. I think the thing is, if I see a deck that has Aether Vial in it that isn't humans, I just know that it's probably not using Aether Vial as well as humans does.
That's probably true.
I really feel like if you're going to play an Aether Vial creature deck, you're probably playing humans. And if you're not playing humans, then you're probably playing like Eldrazi and Taxes, because you like playing Taxes lists.
I feel like Vials is fine in these obviously these heavy creature decks anyways. It is playing 31 creatures, which is what you want for a Vial deck.
Yeah.
But I think the one awkward thing is that like in humans, Vial makes a lot of your cards much more devastating when they have Flash. Most of your cards have Flash or have the potential to have Flash in this deck, so you're just not really getting anything crazy.
You're getting your same mana advantage that you get from Vial, but you're not getting that like you shouldn't have this effected. You shouldn't have Reflector Mage at its speed.
Humans gets to like set up attacks where like now you have to worry about what their Vial can do, whereas you're telegraphing these things whether or not you have Vial.
Yeah.
And maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's good enough like Spell Queller or like Rattle Chains, but I think it matters.
I think that the reason why Collected Company can be so good is because you have good Lord effects inside of Spirits.
Specifically Hexproof Lord effects.
Yes, and getting 2 of those at its speed is really good. And you don't have those same Lord effects that you don't have the same Lord effects that you do in humans. Humans, you want Vial because you have, first of all, you're playing 5 colors, so like you are actively getting an advantage from Aether Vial because you do not have to care about your mana. Like you would have bad mana and still cast all your spells. This isn't necessarily a concern for a simple blue-white deck. Your mana is probably going to be fine. Most of your things already have either have Flash or can gain it. And sometimes you will definitely like have awesome mana advantage with Aether Vial, but you could still have that advantage somewhat with, Collect Company and get an extra creature for the road.
Right.
I think like you also get the upside of being able to play things like Noble Hierarch, which I think are important, just for like having another way to actually have mana advantage as well. And I think I don't know. I just like that version better. This version did perform better, for all that is worth. And you do get to play some interesting lands. You obviously get to play Mutavault, and you do get to play like Cavern of Souls, more of, and Aganjo Castle, which is important for your Thalia that you get to play in Kira as well. That's I guess Kira does Kira counter it technically. I think she does.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, not for Kira. Don't do that. You'll feel real bad and real dumb. Um, uh, Okay,
right,
I just
good.
sorry, I was
Cool.
reading it.
Cool
So
silence.
I just wanted to see like technically if your human's opponent makes their phantasmal image a legendary creature, you can kill it with a Gonjo Castle because it's a creature you control. It's just a target legendary. So
That's true, Smooth.
corner case, just saying,
Got him.
Can't happen. Probably has happened before. Very hilarious, but I just like Band Spirits probably because I just like those colors better than the blue white. I mean. I want to take a look at the Band Spirit sideboard. I want to see if they have anything that really kind of sets it apart sideboard wise. And Rex Sage is about it, but meh.
I mean, Rex is still a sweet hit, but
It is, but you could it's nice because you can get it off of like a collected company, but you could
Sure.
just as easily play another effect.
It does play engineered explosives, which having the third color is relevant for that too.
That's really true as well. I don't know. I think like if I'm going to play this and it's not 5 color, and I could just easily like the third color is not necessarily free, but it's close enough.
I mean, it's certainly cheaper to play the blue white version.
Yeah,
and like you don't have to get like Horizon Canopies, for example. But,
yeah. But I mean, like Canopies, honestly, like
no,
great.
it's good. It's very good, but like you don't have to.
Yeah, right. I get that.
I thought it was an interesting take, and it did pretty well. Like
I think that Spirits with getting Supreme Phantom, Supreme Danny Phantom, that has helped out that deck so much, and it is getting close to just being like better Merfolk. So if you were,
it's already better. Merfolk,
yeah, because it's playable.
Merfolk is non-existent.
So like if you already is sort of like the Merfolk player, I think like this is kind of where you want to shift.
Yeah.
You still get to play Kira.
Get them flying Merfolk.
Yeah, it's just like flying is obviously so much better than like Island Walk. Because I really like these decks. I just really like creature decks like this that kind of play to the board a lot.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's why I like humans so much, because humans just dumb though. Like we can talk about humans. The innovation really is Militia Bugler. None of these lists played more than 19 lands, but some people had. I think Jerry T suggested playing 20. I think there was someone at the tournament that wanted to play humans but couldn't find an Avacyn's Pilgrim, so and decided to play a different deck because they couldn't find an Avacyn's Pilgrim. So potentially you're not playing a 20th land, you're playing another Mana Dork. So I think I'm going to try that the next time that I do play humans and see how well that plays instead of playing a 20th land. But I played humans at FNM and went 4-1, and the deck felt great, and lost to the mirror because I don't know how to play the mirror, which is not great. Probably should learn that, but whatever. Bugler is definitely here to stay. I don't know if the correct number is for a main deck or what have you, or how that all sorts itself out, but definitely a strong card.
Yeah.
Definitely real good. Really feels awesome to get a phantasmal image from it. That's just like the best feeling. So anything else from the open that we're going to talk about?
We can move to the classic.
All right.
Classic.
So like I said before, classic was won by Infect.
It's in first and third place.
Yeah, like this is just one of those decks that can just surprise you. It hasn't been nearly as popular since we had Gataxian Pro banned so many moons ago. And we see some differences in the list with like playing like an Aircall Mirror, which some lists did, some lists didn't. But obviously, something that's still really, really good in these lists is Blossoming Defense. The card that they got from Kaladesh. I think that's what continues to make these sort of decks still pretty viable, even after losing one of your best cards in Gataxian Probe. So, But yeah, newest cards in the sideboard I think is Shaper Sanctuary, and are they playing the fast land? I don't think so.
No, it does not look like it.
No fast lands. But yeah, it's nice to see that this deck is still viable, and like if Tron is good, then this deck is very good.
That's true.
So that probably helped it out a lot. I do wonder how it is against Ironworks combo. I wonder if they're just faster than Ironworks combo. And I know they have some pieces of like light disruption and like spell pierce and stuff like that. I wonder if that's just enough to along with like Nature's Claim.
I would take a guess.
I wonder if that's just enough to like disrupt them just a little bit, like counter, like get them to turn 4 and have them like try to cast an Ironworks and counter it, and then just kill them on the way back. So I don't know. I guess I haven't seen Ironworks combo like play enough to see like how
and like Infect hasn't been like tier 1, so
right,
you're not
exactly.
seeing that match. I'm gonna say it's probably fine. Like you have the potential for pretty consistent, turn 2, turn 3 kills out of Infect when your opponent really doesn't do anything against you. So,
and I think like as far as like Infect Humans matchup is they're probably just faster.
Yeah, it's probably true.
And if you can't block, which most of the time you're not blocking, they're probably going to attack you with with a blighted agent to kill you, where you can't really do anything about that.
Right.
And especially if you're like your goal is I'm going to Reflector Mage, and they're like, oh cool, Blossoming Defense idiot, and you're like, yeah, I'm dead.
Yeah, it could just
got me.
It could just be a good choice right now. I will say, Jeskai was still one of the most played decks in the open. So
yeah, the open.
That's a little wary because Jeskai is not a good matchup.
Oh no, neither is Jund.
Yeah, that's true. So.
Or any of the like mid range removal decks.
Right.
You're definitely going to lose pretty hard to those. But we don't see a lot of that here in the in the top 16. Realistically, we have Mardu Pyromancer in 16th.
That is also a tough matchup for your
a
lot of
in
removal
11th
and Lingering Souls. So.
And then we have Blue White Control in 12th, but nothing actually breaks through past that. Past 11th, I should say.
Right.
And a deck I wanted to bring up as a potential good choice for the Pro Tour though is Dredge.
Yeah, I mean, here it is in 8th and 9th. Again, I will say, I don't know if I call that good or not, depending on what there's still so many decks just running around. There's a bunch of Pyromancer decks running around with just like, Leyline of the Void is super popular right now. There's a lot of it in sideboards, and you just don't beat that card.
I guess that could be true. I think a lot of people were playing Leyline of the Void because of Ironworks.
Right.
And I think like
you're just getting incidental hate from it, and it's rough.
I guess that's true. I guess that's true. I didn't factor that in to be like,
granted, top 8 here, the 8th and 9th, Caleb Herber and Connor Mullally, like that's great, but I would be really afraid of like playing a deck that, like, again, playing one of these decks that just like gets hit so hard by a sideboard card that isn't even like there for you.
Yeah,
you're
especially
not running Leyline because of Dredge right now.
Yeah, especially since like Ironworks is another one of those decks that could just be everywhere at the Pro Tour.
Like Ironworks is so popular, like with a lot of those people, like the Matt Nass crowd. But also think like that card's also very good against a number of strategies right now. So it's great against Storm. It's great against even like Mardu Pyromancer.
That Black Red Vengevine deck that we talked about,
which actually is in 13th place here, which we can talk about. I do want to mention a couple other decks here. 4-color Saheeli. Top 8. I like these decks. These are Eldritch Evolution decks. They're not Cord. They're not Collected Company.
They're not Pod.
But they're trying to be Pod, and they play Saheeli right for value. And this is a true toolbox.
This deck plays Acidic Slime. Done.
There you go.
I'm a fan.
Bringer. It's got both of us. Thalia's Lancers.
Yeah. Get that legendary.
So you can go find your Shalai or your Pia. Which is pretty cool. Your Pia and Kieran, I should say.
You could get your Saheeli.
That is also true, which is pretty sweet. And of course, this combos off of the Felidar Guardian Saheeli Rai combo, anyways. So I like these decks because I think this combo is a little bit cleaner, and like Saheeli is really easy to cast on turn 2 in this deck, and then like you always are threatening like comboing off, so it does make your opponents have to play a little bit more guarded.
Yeah, I really like when I look through like a mana base for a deck and be like, I have all that mana. It feels really, really good because you're like, everything else is probably not that bad. It's got like a Noble Hierarch. I got those.
Yeah, you have like Voice of Resurgence, which is kind of gross.
Like, yeah, $50 for a playset. I'll suck it up.
I mean, you just like have to own them, which is like fine. You have to pay $40.
You do have to own them. Yeah, that's
almost
unfortunate.
$40 for a Gaddock Teague if you don't have it.
No, I got them Teagues.
There you go. So I think it was a pretty sweet one. And then
oh crap, I might have to buy this deck.
There you go.
Dang it! No, stop it.
Before we talk about the Vengevite deck, I do want to mention. So Jaden Clonparents played Mardu Pyromancer in the Classic, and I want you to take a look at that list. Look at the whole 75. Tell me what makes you excited.
Pulling it up.
So I will say for those who are not playing the Morgan game, that this is a pretty consistent version of Pyromancer. I will say she played 2 Liliana the Last Hope in the main.
Yo!
Oh, he found it. What is it?
Is it Kolaghan's the Storm's Fury?
It's Kolaghan the Storm's Fury.
Yo, that card's awesome.
So Kolaghan the Storm's Fury, if you don't remember, is a 5-cost 4/5 dragon. It's 3 generic red and a black. It says whenever a creature you control, a dragon creature you control attacks, creatures you control +1/+0 until end of turn. It has dash. This was sweet in the dragons deck from before. Dashes with Lingering Souls when you got a bunch of tokens.
It's real good.
I saw this, I was like, oh man, I saw her on Twitter. She had tweeted out, someone was like, is that actually supposed to be Kolaghan? And she's like, oh yeah, it's Kolaghan. So that was, I thought, pretty awesome.
I'm down.
Yeah, so I think that's a cool, I don't know where that really goes, but that is a sweet card to bring in there.
That's a cool one of.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 13th place list. This is the Vengevine one we were talking about. It's a pretty clean version of it. 4 Hangerback Walker, 4 Walking Ballista, 4 Goblin Bushwhacker, 4 Gravecrawler, 4 Insolent Neonate, 4 Stitcher Supplier. That is really the card that makes this deck kind of go.
Yep.
4 Viscera Seer, 4 Vengevine, 4 Faithless Looting, 3 Cathartic Reunion, 4 Bridge from Below, and lands, including 4 Blackly Cliffs. Fun fact, this is the deck that might finally make me get Blackly Cliffs so I can play Pyromancer too. Because I think this deck is sweet. Now, granted, I would have to pick up Vengevines and Bridges, but...
yeah, bridges are your least concern, and like Vengevine just like I've talked about with our show, like Vengevine is like one more printing away from being like a sub like 2-digit the cost.
Yeah,
card.
here's the thing: we made that joke, but I want to see where this deck goes because this deck, most of the Vengevine decks have shown up for a minute, and then a different version got better. You know what I mean? What would we have that with recently? The Hollow one,
yeah,
like a different version got better. This might be a real version of this deck. Like this deck, it does some really gross things.
I completely agree. I think this deck is really cool. I like Vengevine. Like I like that card. Like the card just feels like it is always on the cusp in modern, where like you said, it shows up in decks and then people are like, actually, I don't need this card. That's weird.
I can play a better version.
I think it's weird that we might have like a resurgence of Bridge from Below being like a busted card, which. We obviously know that's a busted card in Legacy Dredge and like vintage Dredge, I assume, but Legacy Dredge for sure.
Yeah.
And for it to be like, nah, we found a way. Life finds a way.
Finds a way.
But yeah, I think like I think this deck is really cool, and we talked about Stitcher Supplier. We talked about the velocity that card has, and I imagine like there are definitely like certain turn 2s that are really gross.
No,
with this
you
card.
can like 10 power in turn 2 without really trying. I also like look at the sweet side of our card, Driven to Despair.
Yeah,
that's that sweet Aftermath Outer Devastation card.
I mean, like if you're putting a lot of cards in your graveyard, hey, we'll just cast Despair. We don't need to drive anything.
Yeah, so I think that is really the deck that doesn't need to be on your radar, not just for the Pro Tour, but just in general. If you haven't played against it, the first time you do, it will kind of blow your mind. And there's a lot of cards.
I'm just looking at Despair and being like, I can't imagine like being like a control player or something like that, and just having that like cast against him and like, oh no. But my cards, my sweet cards.
And quick shout out to 5-color aggro.
Yeah, Jack Rump.
So. Got that sweet one. Want to quickly talk about Standard?
Yeah, I'd be perfectly honest. Obviously we talked about mono black aggro zombies, but aggro, kind of like showing up and winning the whole dang thing. That is really surprising to me, to be perfectly honest. Just because like there's this card in Standard right now called Vine Mare. I don't know.
I don't think it's seeing enough play to just like nullify zombies as a deck.
I guess, but dang.
I mean, what was it? Mono Green Aggro's there too. Also, the winner of this is Joshua Satterfield, who's an indie guy. So congrats there, taking that last one. But I mean, Mono Green's in 4th place, and zombies. I don't know if zombies had to play him or not. I don't know if he had to. Actually
no main deck Weimar. That's where you made your mistake.
There it is.
Got to play him in the main.
But I think this is pretty cool. The Liliana Touched by Death is the sideboard, but I think that's awesome. But I mean, you see it for Liliana's Mastery, 4 Lord of the Accursed, 4 Death Baron, plus other good zombies. You see a lot of 1-drops here with your Diagraph Ghouls and your Dread Wanderers. This is fine. I think this is, if you really wanted to bring it back out, it's there. And also, Zombies was also in 8th place and in 12th place.
Yeah, well,
So
I mean, like I feel like this is an indie special where people in indie just been like crafting with this mono black zombies list, and they're
but
like
it could be a
finally
PT special. Just saying,
it could be.
there are some people in that Pro Tour who may have done well with zombies recently enough that they might
Hmm.
want to Jerry
Yeah,
Thompson up
give it
again.
a last hurrah.
A couple of as I go further down, the Sam Merchant's list does have 3 Liliana Untouched by Death in the main, and the eighth place list had 2 in the main. So I think that's kind of cool to see that get some play with it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a place where that's gonna get played, it's gonna be there.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to see it getting play. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I like the wild disparity though between like the actual price of this deck and paper and the online price.
yeah, it's hilarious.
It's like 58 tickets online. It's great.
We also had another weird one in ninth place. You see a blue-eyed Drakehaven making a comeback.
Yeah, I assume this is fairly similar to what we've seen before, like even Dominaria.
Yeah, it is pretty similar to that.
We have Teferi, obviously, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, this is the abandoned sarcophagus special, playing just a bunch of cyclers and Drakehaven, and you know what? I think that do you feel like, do you look at Drakehaven and go like, do you feel disappointed that it didn't like meet your expectations?
I got to do some fun things with it, but yeah, a little bit. I won't lie, a little bit. I think that once I saw Amaket and Hour as a whole, like they did some cool things pushing cycling, but maybe I don't know. It fell a little short. I don't know. I was glad. I'm glad they dabbled in the space again, but nothing's going to be Astro Slide, and that's just where I'm at. Nothing's going to be Astro Slide. I wish it was.
Do you think they could have like printed a sort of like a fixed Astral Slide variant or something like that? Maybe something that targeted like your own creatures.
I think if they could have, they would have.
Gotcha.
So I'm not saying it could never happen, but I think they were open to playing around with those cards. They redesigned those enchantment triggers to work better, and they didn't make it. So maybe they just didn't want to do it, but I mean, like I feel like you'd lean into it if you could do it. So
Yeah.
it's all right. I got to play with Drakehaven a fair amount, and I'm glad I did. And I even when Godfarrow's Gift came out and everything, like I had that the sort of the deck that switched into Drakehaven, got to play that for a little bit, and sort of felt like I got to be at the forefront of pushing to see what that archetype could be, and I'm glad I got to do that. So I'm okay.
You okay?
Thanks for checking in.
I just thought, I just always look at that card and be in my box and like, you should have been a contender.
Yeah, you could have been a contender.
You could have been a contender.
Yeah, it feels like this is just like a throwback top 16 in general, because there's also 2 copies of Blue Eyed Approach in the top 16. So it's just like, or I'm sorry, 1 copy. The other one's just Control. But like, man, all the cards that are getting out of here, we're just missing some Godfarrow's Gift. Just like, yeah, the rotation special.
Yeah, that's kind of a deck that has fallen off the map, or any sort of like Godfarrow gift strategies. Wonder why that is.
If you look here, it's because the deck that was really preying on was like mono red, like super low to the ground mono red.
It's just gone.
It's kind of gotten beaten out of the format a little bit. You have red black mid range, but that deck's much better positioned against what the Godfarrow's Gift decks are doing. So. Yeah, I think Standard surprisingly is open, even though you might think that it's not. It really is, and that's not to even ignore something like Grixis mid range, the Nicol Bolas decks, which also make appearances here. So,
I think that I agree with you, but I think that there is a lack of interest in Standard still.
Sure, we're about to go to a huge rotation, and the core set really didn't do. It's doing more than I think people thought it would, just like for decks. But I think like I'm in the position where I'm like. We talked about this before. There's a whole bunch of things with this, but there's no standard opens.
Mm-hmm.
So, after the Pro Tour, there's really nothing to look forward to. And then we're going to start getting Ravnica soon. We're going to get some ideas on Ravnica soon. So, I honestly, there's a panel at GenCon about Magic, and I would not be surprised if we got some Ravnica stuff at that 25th anniversary panel. Let's be honest. So, I think that it just stands in a weird place. I think it's pretty open. I think it's at a good place, but it's getting real close to being done. Put a fork in it.
I really hope that when Ravnica comes out, that we do get some more support for standard tournaments. I really hope that Star City Games feels like they can potentially have some standard opens.
I would not be surprised to see that we get some of those back. And I think the other way that you could really do it is you could really. I don't know if Wizards ready to do it yet or not, but I think we've talked before. If they went back to PTQs, not just PPTQs, like went back to like regular PTQs, you might see it too. So we'll see.
Yeah. But that's going to be it for our lovely and fascinating discussion on the modern and standard formats as they stand currently.
I like how you suggested adjectives for people. Like, this is what it was.
This is what it was. Just in case you were, couldn't really think of the words.
In case you were really negative on it, we said, no, you're not.
No,
this
you're
is
not.
how you
this
felt.
This is great. You're welcome. And then, of course, we have our wrap up. We have the Pro Tour, coming up. We talked pretty extensively about, but that's going to kick off on Friday and carry on through Sunday. So, or I guess if you want to count the Silver Showcase as the kickoff, sure, it kicks off on Thursday then, but don't. I'm
kind of sad I won't be able to watch too much of it, but at the same time, I'll be at GenCon, so nope.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, but I feel like it's so weird that there's like this huge, kind of important, kind of big tournament that's happening that is happening at the same time as the 4 best days in gaming. So weird, but whatever.
Hey, at least they're not ignoring it this time. Looks like WotC itself has a real presence, not just pastime.
Yeah, that's nice.
Like they ignored Origins.
They technically did last year as well with you could watch.
No, right. Yeah, I'm glad I'm just saying they ignored Origins in the anniversary year after it debuted at Origins.
Yeah,
but whatever.
I think that's kind of awkward, but
I know it's sad.
But that's pretty much the only big thing happening over the weekend. So that's been our show. If you want to reach out to us, have any questions, feel free to reach out to us via our Twitter. It's YourEndStep. And when you add us, it's at YourEndStep. We also have an email address at YourEndStep@gmail.com. And of course, Facebook.com/@YourEndStep. It's also where you can check out our sponsor, Comic Town. Do a search for Comic Town Gaming Center on Facebook, and they'll pop right up. If you're listening to us on your Apple device via Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave us a rating and a review. Or if you're listening to us via MTG Cast, definitely check out some of the other lovely shows they have on there. We also have a Patreon. We forgot to tell you the top of the show because I was hyping up Gen Con, but we do have a Patreon. Of course, we're still going to be doing that contest for the Nexus of Fate promos. So that's going to start after Gen Con because Gen Con's very busy. Of course, if you are already contributing to us via Patreon, you're already entered in to win that Nexus of Fate when we do our drawing. And then we have... we will be running another contest via our Twitter once Gen Con is over for the other promo that anyone who follows us on Twitter can enter into. And more details will come out once Gen Con is over. So keep your eyes tuned to that. And our Patreon, of course, is patreon.com/@YourEndStep. Anything from else that I forgot, Mike?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Have a great one. Bye.